All right, guys. Let's just take a moment and arrive in the room. Just give your day a chance to come to a stop. If anybody's dealing with anything that they'd specifically like discussed tonight, you're welcome to put it in the chat. But otherwise, let's just take in the entire room at once. Nothing to achieve. Nowhere to get to. If you can just call off the search for the next thing, you'll find the veil parts. And you can be in what's real. That part of you that wants to push forward, go ahead and let it. Let the pusher push. You just stay here and watch the breath. Sure, Anna, we'll talk about that. Tell you what, first, why don't we just tune ourselves a little bit? So we're going to move up and down the mountain. For anyone who hasn't done this, I want you just to picture a ball of light encompassing your crown and your forehead. The center of that ball is in the center of your brain. This is the upper center. Let's just be there for a little while. There's nothing to know about it, nothing to understand about it. We're just going to start at the top of the mountain. And as that clarity comes, we're going to thread it down. Just let your eyes fall to a spot on the floor in front of you. Whatever you think you came here for, you're going to have to abandon it to get it. Let go of time. Just be at the upper center. Now bring your attention down the spine into your heart. And just be at the heart. Let it have its little discomforts. You just gently center yourself at the heart. There's nothing you need to make happen. way down. Slow yourself to the speed of this still moment. What if you just let go? What if you just let your heart be exactly what it is? Now drop down to the lower center. You're going to bring that ball, and the center of it's going to be just below the navel and about an inch inwards. And it's going to encompass the bottom of your pelvis, as well as your solar plexus. Nothing to figure out about that. Just be at the lower center. come back up to the heart. Rise back into the heart. To do that, you have to let go of the lower. Be cleanly in the heart. Now rise back to the upper center. What if you just release your grip a little bit? And just let it happen. It's right there. You just have to let go into it. Let's do one more cycle. Drop down into the heart. Only it's different this time. You come with the experience you gained from the last cycle. Can you feel that little layer? Just one layer deeper than where you are. A little bit of stress there. Just let your awareness touch all of it. Let the heart beat. Let it show you what it's about. Drop down to the lower center. Slow yourself down. You can't find its speed if you're still directing. There you go. Rise back up to the heart. And now back up to the forehead and crown. So Anna is asking if we can talk about emotional triggers during the full moon. There's this kind of dance that we have to do in life. If you want to participate in life, you have to become vulnerable in certain ways. But that vulnerability puts you to sleep if you're not careful. You know, we've talked before about how we are a complex of stories glued together by feeling. And that set of stories has created a veil that keeps you from actually experiencing yourself as you are. That set of stories comes with all kinds of roles that you have to play in life. It comes with the idea of successes and failures, good moments and bad, times where you did right by people and times where you let them down, and a whole host of insecurities. And so you walk into life, this kind of minefield. And then there are forces in life. Forces that get delivered by the planets, forces that get delivered by your spouses, your parents. Sometimes forces that just move across the land, initiating natural change. Astral weather patterns of energy that, depending on where you're at in life, can snuff you right out. And the way all of those forces work is they enliven your triggers. Whether it's the full moon, whether it's some other astrological event, or whether it's just the repercussions of a full moon 100 years ago that have made an entire lineage of people crazy. That filters in and it stirs what's there to be stirred. And when that happens, the first thing that happens is you ask yourself, why am I feeling so bad? Why am I feeling this way? And the thing is, you're not going to get an honest answer. Because your brain is just an answer machine that pulls on your stories to answer the questions. And so it's going to just try and find some answer that makes sense, and it's going to bubble up out of your subconscious and tell you that the reason you're feeling this way is because of something you did wrong or something you're not acting on. Don't get me wrong, there are intuitive nudges, but that's not the same as being triggered, and those come with clarity. When we're talking about real triggers, there are outside forces stirring your crap. That's right, Anna. The majority of times the feeling isn't even yours, but it's intense. And so that's what kind of happens, right? You get to this place where you've worked with your own stuff so much that you actually know what's yours. You've still got all this programming inside of you, but you know it isn't real anymore. But that doesn't mean it doesn't get stirred. It doesn't mean it doesn't get touched. Any teacher that I have ever had who pretended that they were somehow beyond all of their triggers live with them for 8 or 9 years, and you'll see plenty of them get fired. You know, we all have this part of us that can just get lit up. The difference is when you're lit up, what do you do? You know, when you're lit up, do you start asking yourself all the wrong questions? Or do you start working with yourself to become something more useful to that moment? You know? And there's a whole skill to that. Like this morning I woke up and, you know, I live in a city, so there's no shortage of waves of energy coming at me. But even if I didn't, I work with people, I'm connected to people. And so I'm noticing that things are just stirred, right? And it's like 7 in the morning. I'm not at my best. You know, in that moment, there's this little dance you have to do, depending on how deeply they got in. You know, there's this thing where if they really start infiltrating your belief system, you need to pull out the big guns. You know, for me in the morning, that's when I'm the most vulnerable. Because at some point you do let go of consciousness while you're sleeping, and things just sort of come in, and you don't always wake up the same person that went to bed. So for me, what that looked like was understanding that the first thing I have to do is not contribute with my thoughts. So for me, that was taking in a breath, and on every exhale, saying the word Om in my head. Doesn't have to be the word Om. It could be anything. Take whatever you have from whatever religions you're a part of, or even just something meaningful to you. What's important is that you're making a choice. And so you are giving yourself to that choice. And what that does is it lifts your frequency just a little bit above it. Once that happens, you start to feel more comfortable. And from that place of comfort, you can just remember what you are and what your life is about and how to move through your day. But if you have somebody actively upset, you're probably going to be dealing with that on some level for most of your day. So it's just about staying awake to it and actually responding to it in that way. The dance is, you can't live like that. You can't live from a place of micromanaging the feelings of the moment. When you do that, yes, you will feel more comfortable, although it takes a fair amount of energy to do it. But you will actually shut yourself off from your ability to communicate with everything around you. You know, I've had teachers that relied very heavily on that kind of control, and they barely knew the people around them. You know, they only knew the things that were getting them. So sometimes you have to, do that just to get yourself into a clean space. But it's not a long-term solution for your day. You do have to actually be vulnerable to those feelings that come in. And so there's just this dance. If you let them in too long, you'll start to go to sleep. You'll start to actually forget that you have any control over it. You'll start to forget that it's coming from outside, and you'll start to use it to kind of rebuild your inner world of triggers. So there's kind of this line you have to surf, especially if you're sensitive, and I know that you are. Get the relief you need, catch your breath, find your center, and then relax again and just let life communicate with you. Is there something that you need to act on? Is there someone you need to call? Or is there some piece of information that you just need to know about the current state of the weather around you? Those boundaries need to be there, but they need to be very flexible. And it's the same with a full moon, right? I mean, it's the same if what's getting triggered is just this celestial event. It's stirring things around in you. If you don't have any mental space, then it's just going to be a stirred mess. But if you can get a little bit of space and then relax a little bit, the stirring can actually show you some of the things that are yours. A full moon, a triggering force, can actually help you continue cleaning yourself. So it's a matter of degrees. You know, there's a sweet spot to that challenge and to that discomfort. If it's too much challenge, you're going to fall asleep. If there's no challenge, you're going to be unresponsive to the world around you. So a spiritual warrior is someone who stays awake so that they can continue surfing on top of that wave. Continue figuring out where that sweet spot is. You know, there's something about spiritual seekers. We're always kind of looking for that final fix, you know, that thing that's going to finally make it so that, okay, we're there now and we're done. And that's just not how any of it works. The sweet spot today is going to move tomorrow. There isn't a moment when you can stop engaging. Maybe just to catch your breath, but not for long. Imbalance in either direction takes you down. You bet, Anna, no problem. It is tiring being so sensitive. It doesn't last, though. You know, I've learned I have to be very careful how I interact with people. You know, I have to be very careful how curious I get about them, because that opens a door into my life. You know, I once went through a phase of playing around with the weather. I got all excited because I started to have some control over the weather. And after a while, who cares? But what lasts forever is the weather gets to completely control how I feel half the time. You know, I've been crazy sensitive to it ever since. Was it worth it to call down a hailstorm here and there? You know, it's like, be careful how you choose to participate in the world around you. It should be purposeful, it should be flexible, and it should be loving. But if you're going to expose yourself to difficult energies, one, there should be room for it in your life. And that's, you know, that changes from week to week. And two, it should be purposeful. You know, something good should be coming out of it for both of you. But that's the dance. And you only learn about it by dancing and by making mistakes. You know, someone can tell you this, but, you know, as you know, you can't even imagine it until you step into it, really. You step into the river and then you know about its currents, not the other way around. Are there any questions about that? Or anything at all? It's natural to want to protect yourself. and healthy in doses. Just don't get lost in that either. All right, guys. If there aren't any more questions, why don't we go back in the meditation for just a little while and just let this kind of percolate? Attention at the forehead and crown. Why don't you pick a word to say in your head on every exhale? I use Om. If you're Christian, you could use Pax. That means peace, P-A-X. It could be literally anything, though. Anything that means something akin to peace or love. And feel what it's like to actually take the reins of your mind in hand. Different than what we teach in this class most of the time. We open up into it. But this is for those moments when you're not going to have the clarity to do that. Say your word on the exhale, and on the inhale, you're just silently preparing to say the word again. Notice the space that that starts to give you. Just pushes it right off of you, doesn't it? Just like when you're shifting centers, you have to shift off of the energy and onto the practice. You have to let go of it to pop to a different frequency. This is not meditation. This is concentration. And it's effective but not sustainable. Give 3 more really focused breaths. And that little hint of a new space, see if you can let go into it now. Can you make a new home of that for a while? I think you should play with that this week. It's such an important visceral, energetic skill, especially if you are a very sensitive person. And the energy is intense lately. But this week, when you wake up and you're not feeling right, or if all of a sudden you're just hit with something, before your mind can even start telling you all the things that are wrong with you, get yourself a little space with concentration. Something very simple, just like that. You can even do it out loud if you want it. That'll help. And then as soon as it lifts you above it, see if you can make that shift from concentration into just being at that new space. You let go of your investment in the old feeling. It'll still probably pull you back in after a while. You are sharing this life. But that doesn't mean you have to be in the worst of it. And in fact, it gives you a little bit of a buffer so that it pulling you back in is less something screaming inside your body and more just this kind of gentle tug, which makes it easier to discern what it is. All right, guys. Any questions before we end for the night? All right, I will be here next Thursday. I wish you all a good week. Thanks for coming. And practice your concentration this week.
Thank you so much, Liam. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Nice to see you, Sharon.
Good night.
Night.